Hello and welcome to this episode of the weekly Shakeout of Paula's Run Club with me, Paula Radcliffe.
Me, Christopher Thompson.
And these episodes are now, of course, the Shakeout is sponsored by HIGH5, the sports nutrition company. Thank you very much for backing this listener interaction part of our run club, and basically from electrolytes to energy gels, whether it's a 5k all the way up to a marathon, they've got you covered. Do not forget to check out the special offer that we have going. That's 25% off. Head to high5.co.uk and use the code Paula in capitals 25 to be able to get your full discount. And without further ado, Tomo, let's crack on with the listener interaction questions that we have. And this is one that actually came in by WhatsApp from Catherine. And Catherine said, thanks so much for the tips and advice. We got her through her first marathon in Manchester in 3:28. Well done. And a PB in the Robin Hood half today when she sent the message in
I've run
1:35. Excellent. Did you beat 1:35?
Yeah, just it was actually
but
the British. It was the English champs or British champs as well at the time. But anyway, yeah, sorry.
But you're not female or 51 either and new to running races. So I think that was a phenomenal run from Catherine. She's listened avidly to every episode from the beginning, and her question is on cadence. How important is it? She's seen the benchmark is around 180 steps per minute, but is this what you should be aiming for at race pace? And should it go up and down as you pick up and decrease speeds, or should you be extending your stride? Thanks for the invaluable content, Catherine.
So I don't know what there's a in those laws, like it's not a Newton law, or there's something, and I forget what it is, that I got told many years ago, that you're under fatigue, your body naturally finds its most efficient way of running. And do you know what the law is? Can you remember what it was? I can't.
No, but it's basically your body is going to find its most comfortable way of running, and some people naturally have a higher cadence and some have a lower cadence, don't they? I mean, do you know what yours was?
I don't actually know. I just know that you kind of I know I just could feel my cadence would change as I try and run quicker. I would naturally, rather than think how far I was reaching, it was more the force through the ground. So I didn't think about how far my legs were going out in front of me or how far I was reaching. I was thought of it as more power through the ground, and that the more force through the ground, the more you extend out effectively. So I kind of flipped it in my mind how I was thinking about it. But I think the important thing to remember is that running efficiency is something that is the marker you're looking for, rather than the cadence or strides. Because somebody like your running action, Paula, correct me if I'm wrong, was you had a much more shorter stride and you had a very efficient way of doing it.
Yeah, so I had a higher cadence.
Yes, and
because
someone like Mo was a bit more lopey, wasn't he?
Yeah, totally. So I was just going to say Mo's like a good example of not getting too caught up and worrying too much about the cadence. Because yes, people would say the higher cadence, the better, particularly for marathons. And yes, before I kind of had the foot injuries, and that's one of the big things that I've noticed as I've got older, less efficient, and with my foot injury, my cadence has dropped. So whereas I would be in the high 180s before, when I was really running at my best, now it's probably 170s or so. But Mo would be in the 160s all the time, didn't do him any harm, still ran very fast. It's about making it work for you. And I think the advice there for Catherine would be to measure it out of interest. It shouldn't really change a lot, to be honest. It's the actual, so your cadence is about the same, but when you're running faster, your stride will be a little bit longer. So for the same cadence, you will, but it will change if you're really jogging. So if you go to a really easy run, then your cadence will, of course, drop right down. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I think the important thing is I would put something like this in the category of it's interesting to look back on. Rather than in the moment consciously try to change. Because I think as technology advances and gives us more information, it's where you park that up or where you box it so that it becomes something useful to help you improve, rather than something becomes like an extra stress to worry about. It's like a lot of these sleep apps now. I feel like can add a pressure of you wake up and there's an anxiety to get a good score. And I'm not saying that necessarily everyone feels like that, but there is an element of over monitoring that you have to be careful of. So I would say cadence is something that for me it's interesting to look back on, but in the moment you find your running action needs to naturally find itself, and that's how you'll be more efficient. How you can affect change is, again, for me, correct me if you think differently, there's an element that's natural for you, like you naturally ran the way you ran, Paula, me and Mo, but the way you affect change is more through a gym exercise program, and a gym exercise program will help your muscles and help your power and stuff become more efficient, and so you'll see more noticeable changes which affect how you run through the gym, rather than actually going out the door and thinking I'm going to consciously alter my running action. So that would be my kind of sum up of that.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, because if you're in the gym and you're doing plyometrics and you're doing bounds and strength work, you will be increasing your cadence, because basically what your cadence is how many strides you take in a minute. So for anybody there are ways that you can measure it. You can get it measured on a lot of the smartwatches nowadays. The basic old way we used to do it was how many times does your left foot hit the floor during a minute, and then double it, and that is your cadence. And that was the basic way that I used to count it. So now there are technical ways to do that, but it's basically your turnover speed. And so that's what Catherine's talking about. And you're right, by building up foot strength, muscle strength, doing work in the gym, you improve that efficiency, you shorten the amount of time each foot spends on the floor, so you increase your cadence and you become more efficient.
I think, because to be fair, you could do a whole episode of in the gym specifically aimed at that kind of stuff. And again, cadence and efficiency will alter depending on the event. So to give a broadly speaking aspect, like you would have to work a lot heavier and a lot harder to work on cadence over a shorter distance event, like a middle distance event, compared to a marathon. A marathon doesn't involve quite so much work in the gym. It's almost like lower weight, higher reps, whereas if you look at a middle distance athlete, they will need to look at a lot more power lifting in the gym to really affect that change. But again, that's a whole pod on that. But good luck, and I think we've kind of covered that in the most, to use the word efficient way we can for this. Right, anything else before I answer next question?
No, you go on to the next one.
Okay, this comes in from Ben. Hi Paula. Not me again. That's fine. I'm not upset. It's fine. So Paula, just want to say I love the show and I find all your advice super helpful. Thank you very much. I'm busy training for Lisbon Marathon in October. I've lately started to experience coldness in my hands during long runs. My hands go cold and lose sensation for around 15 to 20k mark. I try shaking them out, but it doesn't seem to entirely go away. Do you have any explanation or advice? I often see endurance runners, including you, wear gloves even in warm weather, but was never entirely sure of the reasons for that. Would love to see the above discussed on the show question. Thank you very much, Ben. So, as someone who wears gloves, Paula?
And as someone who gets cold hands as well. Yes. And I think, well, first of all, to explain a little bit what it is. So basically, it's when your body's working efficiently. It diverts the energy and the blood flow to where it's needed most. And when you're working hard, particularly in races and longer races, it kind of decides, well, you don't really need your hands right now. And so if you're not, yeah, exactly. So it diverts the blood flow to the big muscle areas which need it a little bit more, and to the heart, obviously. And so that's why you start to feel a little bit colder. Some people run and they move their hands a lot more. They'll flap their hands around. That kind of keeps the blood flow to that area. If you run quite efficiently with your hands just kept by your side, then they will start to get a little bit cooler. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons why I like to wear gloves. I also find that those big muscle areas kind of get warm on their own. I never really felt that my quads ever got cold in cold weather, or even my upper arms, but my hands did. So that's why I like to have the gloves there. A little bit of a psychological thing as well. Sometimes on warmer days, I have to say it was part of my mind game technique in a marathon. I used to think, right, okay, get to 20 miles and then you can throw the gloves off. And it kind of broke it down into more manageable segments within the race for me in doing that. So yeah, I think experiment with the right kind of gloves as well. Sometimes if you're picking up drinks, it helps to have ones with a little bit of a grip on, thicker or thinner ones, depending on the type of weather you have. And if you're trying to use smartwatches and touchscreen ones as well, then that is another problem with gloves on. So you need to make sure that you've got the gloves that work with that. But so definitely try them out in training and see if that helps with keeping your hands warm. I don't think, unless you're aware of something, Tom, there's a lot else that you can do.
Well, the two things that sprang to mind, just to add context to what you said about diverting blood flow, that's kind of what compression socks and arm sleeves are about as well, helping that blood flow to get to where it's needed, and hence why you can, in your extremities, get a little bit colder. But I don't know, he didn't mention this in the email, but you don't want wet hands or things get wet. If something's wet, it can get colder quicker. So I don't know if you're picking up drinks and your hands are getting wet or getting gels or whatever, that won't help the situation. So I would try and keep your hands dry. And again, that might, if you're going for a water station, don't just, and it's easy to splash things over you. So try and dry them off so they're not wet would be my suggestion. I would say this. I have a variety of different gloves depending on the type of weather that's out there. You can get really very thin gloves that almost you don't even notice you're wearing them, but you need that layer of protection. And but on the other hand, you can get very thick kind of gloves. So I do kind of have a range of gloves based on what I'm about to do. So if I've got really thick gloves, I'm like, I don't want to wear that for a whole marathon, but you can get quite thin layered ones out there. So I would look around to see what there is. As Paula suggests, you certainly don't want ones that are you can't pick up a bottle and are a bit slippery, but there are ones now with you can actually still touch screen stuff, with those that kind of fabric that still allows you to scroll through your phone, which is clever. But I play around with those kind of things, but hopefully the reason why will help you kind of look at what you're doing to help you find a solution. Just
to be reassured that a lot of people wear gloves when they're running, even if they are kind of shorts and vest, they will still have gloves on because their hands do get cold for everybody.
Yeah, no.
So it's not just.
Well, we're in that time of year now. Every morning, my son goes out on his bike to school, and it's gloves on because it has a bit
especially
of
on the bike because there's more of a breeze as well, isn't there?
Exactly.
That definitely hits you. Right, the next one comes in from Claire, and this is actually a really nice one. Firstly, thanks so much for the pod. She ran London earlier as her third marathon. Podcast really helped at taking the guesswork out of the training. She managed a PB of 3:27. Well done. She had been aiming for 3:15 to 20, but the heat really got to her on the day. She still absolutely loved every minute of it and was proud of the training through exams to become a GP, parenting a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old. Also got a 6-minute half marathon PB in the build-up. We should have put her on the honours board as well. That was a phenomenal achievement. Didn't quite manage to go sub 90, but she ran 1:31 for the half and is still chasing the next one. Had toyed with an autumn marathon to try and do herself justice on the 3:15 front, but instead, really exciting news. They're growing their family and she's now 17 weeks pregnant with her third child. So just to recap, the older ones are 4.5 and just turned 2. And she wants to ask more about running through pregnancy. I'm guessing, she rightly says she's fairly experienced in it already.
She's superwoman. She's
ran
incredible.
to 35 weeks for her second child. He arrived early 2 days after her last run, which was 4 miles, pushing the older child in the buggy. Wow. Throughout her first pregnancy, she had struggled a little bit more with sickness and fatigue, so ran for a lot less. It was much easier getting back to running after the second, in part due to running while pregnant more, and I think also knowing what you're doing the second time around helps a little bit. After her second, she had more stubborn hip pain, though, than the first, and this time her mileage and pace were worse. The pregnancy meant that she was fitter than last time around. She can still feel some hip niggles, are at risk of returning. I think that is the most important thing. So to cut to the chase, questions are: how can she best use the pregnancy time to keep mentally and physically enjoying running, protecting the baby and protecting herself and her body, and any tips for preparing for birth and recovery afterwards? Oh, here we go.
I,
Keepar, after 2 emergency C-sections, very likely to have a C-section this time around as well. Core, pelvis, and hips could do with some prehab. Yes, I would completely agree with
do you want to
that.
take this one, Paula?
Well, I was going to say, normally I read it, we've read the wrong one, haven't we, here
Yeah.
completely? Because, I mean, I can't, unfortunately, help any with the C-section side because I didn't have that. But I do know that it's extremely important to keep that whole pelvic ring. Actually, just been corresponding with a friend this week who's picked up a niggle coming back from pregnancy. And I think that's the hardest time, it's coming back. I think during pregnancy, absolutely doing the right thing. Do what you can do to keep yourself sane, healthy, feeling good. That's good for baby growing as well. And do what you can in terms of keeping off-road, making sure that you perhaps go a size up in running shoes because your feet do spread a little bit during pregnancy, the ligaments stretch. So make sure that you stay comfortable there. A sacroiliac support belt I found really useful. So that's basically like, it's kind of like a Velcro compression belt that goes around your
Gemma's
hips.
got one of them at the moment.
Yeah, really, really important for supporting. So you can use that during pregnancy. It kind of helps to support the bump as well, as does compression clothing. But afterwards, it's really important to try and do that because I was told after I had my first child, it takes 9 months for your pelvic area to come back to full strength in terms of ligaments and support around that area, and you can't rush it. There's nothing that you can do in terms of being fitter, healthier. That's just what it takes. And exactly that was what it took to come back to that full strength. So I think keeping that sacroiliac belt on during that time, bearing in mind that the extra demands, particularly immediately postpartum and also the time that you're breastfeeding, mean that your nutrition needs, you need to keep an extra eye on them. Somebody made a really cool point to me when I was pregnant. Basically, the baby will get what they want. So if you aren't bringing enough in, it's you that's going to lose out. So the baby will take all the nutrition, calcium, things like that they need, and they will get what they need. They will leach it from your bones if you're not getting enough. So really important to stay on top of it with all of the essential omegas, but particularly with the calcium and the minerals.
Is that I mean, I didn't know if it was an old wives' tale, but when Gemma was going through her pregnancy, it was and you kind of learn things, was cravings. For when women have cravings, it's linked to what their body or baby needs. So if it's Marmite, there's a lot of B vitamins in that. Whatever it is, it's not something you usually have, but it's because the baby's craving whatever is in that food.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the human body is so smart. And part of, I think, that journey to being a mum is kind of tuning in to those instincts. And again, I think the cravings are just one of those. And that's why I think that definitely the mindset in the medical community has changed. I think if you go back maybe 20 years, people used to think it wasn't a good thing to exercise when you're pregnant, to run when you're pregnant. Now it's really turned around and they will say, yeah, if you already exercise, it's really good to keep doing what you are doing. Obviously change the focus of it. And the big things that I was told for training during pregnancy are not to let your heart rate go above 80%, which is actually quite high, of your max. So you can still do things, but you've got to really listen to your body. Allow absolutely good time for recovery. And make sure that you never go for a run dehydrated or underfueled, and that you rehydrate and refuel immediately that you come in the door. I think that really, really helps. And again, bring in that support crew around. I think particularly with your third child, you're really going to need that support crew in terms of husband, extended family, anyone to babysit and just really take the stress off them, because I can't imagine you're going to be pushing 3 round in a buggy while you try and get back into running. So you want to make sure that you are able to enjoy your running time, building back, and you know that they're safe, looked after, and in the warm and looked after while you're out doing that.
I don't have a huge amount to add. I mean, it's always difficult with this because obviously having watched Gemma go through 2 C-sections and she's still yet to fully get back into running, but it's not because of the because of the birth. It's more to do with just the high demand that George is at the moment, and he's not sleeping fantastically at the moment. So that's kind of, she's not getting as much sleep that's needed to then be more physical. So it's more that's the issue than the recovery from the operation. But it's I certainly think that from my point of view as the husband, it's like I would imagine that she's quite an ambitious lady that just wants to get out the door, and just giving the body the respect. And that was something with Gemma. She was almost desperate to do stuff before she was necessarily ready, and just giving herself that extra week or two to settle down and recover will give her the best chance of getting back up to speed quicker by just being that little bit cautious.
Just to reiterate, it is, of course, really important to do the core and the pelvis exercises. We talked about the fact it takes 9 months for that pelvis to come back to normal. The more exercises that you can do within that time, the more support that you are giving to your body. And one lesson that I did learn the hard way is I thought I was being smart doing a lot more on the elliptical to reduce the impact and to protect my pelvis area. Ended up with a sacral stress fracture because an elliptical actually stresses the sacrum area more than running in terms of the twisting backwards and forwards. So that's a good point to know. Pick the core and cross-training exercises that you can do carefully, and make sure that they are ones that work well with through the pregnancy as well, sitting around the bump and things like that, and the return back afterwards. And just enjoy it. Enjoy that special time with the kids while they're young, Claire.
Yeah. Couldn't say
and
it better.
Congratulations.
I mean, and congratulations. Yeah. No, absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of the most challenging but brilliant things you can do in life, I think, isn't it? And again, it is. And I think in all of this, my closing line is like, it is important to keep a little something in there for yourself, which is what I think running can be. I think that's a real big part of raising children for me, is just having that 20-30 minutes where you're just in your own little world trying to keep sane.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. This comes in from Sarah. Hi, Paula and Tomo. First off, I love the podcast and the energy and passion you both bring. Thank you very much. I've had a bit of a tough time recently and decided to retrain as a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. I'm an avid runner, but very much back of the pack slow runner. Think 34 minutes for 10k, 1 hour 10 for 10k. I don't think that's
34
slow or
5k.
Say again, sorry. Yeah,
34 5k.
Did
yeah.
I thought I said that. Anyway, I don't think that's a back of the pack slow running. You should. That's quicker than you realise. I'd love to do the England Athletics leadership in running fitness and then maybe run leader, but I'm worried they're just going to laugh at me. I really want to help other women like myself discover how great running can be, both physically and mentally. But it's a lot of money if I'm not going to be able to do it properly because I'm slow. Any thoughts or ideas? Not at all. You're first and foremost, you're not slow. All these things are relative and personal, and I think that's what makes running so brilliant. We're all, just because someone next to you is trying to do something different to you doesn't make what you're doing any less or any better or worse. It's all that personal challenge. And in a nutshell, absolutely go for it, because I think the one common denominator in all of this is being passionate and driven. Is the thing that we all collectively share. And I think that your passion and drive and love for running will shine through. And my coach always said to me, who's Alan Story, who was on a previous episode, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I mean, he's coached, he got it, he was done crazy things with his own running career. He's coached Olympic medalists, European medalists, many Olympians, but not just that, but people that just want to get off the couch and run. He's coached all the spectrum. And the one thing he always says to me, he says, if you want to get into coaching, Chris, if you care, you're 90% of the way there. And that's the point. It's like all these details around what's good, bad and stuff. And we are a lot of the time talking about 1%ers, because ultimately the factor is caring is the biggest thing, and the passion and drive. And so absolutely go for it. You're not going to be laughed at, and believe me, if anyone did, smile back at them, because if we all didn't do something because we worried about what someone else thought or how they're going to perceive it, we wouldn't do anything. And that goes for me and you, Paula. Like, you know, that's not what life is. Life is to go out there and push yourself and find your own barriers, and then sharing that with some other people. So please do it and go for it, and let us know when you do it.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say congratulations, Sarah. Just bite the bullet. There is no measurement of how successful you are at something, whether that will make you a good coach and particularly a nutrition expert. That's all down to the skill that you will have there, and your passion for communicating that and helping other people and motivating people with that. So I think it's brilliant that you want to do that. Support you all the way. And yeah, thank you for reaching out and good luck on your journey and in your studies.
And I will say one more thing. It takes bravery to redirect your career path. And I think that in itself is very inspiring, because quite often it takes, that will inspire someone else to do something similar. If in their life they would like to make a change and they're not totally happy. My dad, when I was growing up, said to me, you'll have 5 or 6 different careers in your life, Chris. And I didn't. When you're young, you just go, yeah, whatever, Dad. But he's right. And I didn't, until I got older, I didn't realise quite how that would look. And I think that's where you kind of, rather than feeling like your stakes in the ground and you can't move it, you can lift it and put it in a different field and kind of enjoy something else in life. And I think that's where that's a really nice write-in to say that running can be the constant, but the actual small content of why you do it and all that can look very, very different. The reason that you get out the door or the person next door get out the door can look completely different, but the result is the same. You're still out there enjoying it.
And as you said, we all have our own strengths, and the best coaches perhaps weren't the fastest at running. They just understood it, and they understood how to motivate and how to make it work for people. So yeah, I think that's a brilliant story. Thank you for getting in contact. Please remember that if you do want to get into contact with us, that WhatsApp number is +44 7564 747 914. We do voice messages. We do video messages as well. You can email into Paula's Run Club at momentumbroadcast.co.uk. You can get in touch on socials and on YouTube as well. That is at Paula's Run Club on those socials. And this episode of the Shakeout and all of the Shakeouts are sponsored by HIGH5, that sports nutrition company. Basically electrolytes to energy gels, whether it's a 5K all the way up to an ultra, they've got you covered in terms of sports nutrition. And thank you very much. And we have those giveaways for the shout outs on the HIGH5 honours board in the main pod, and we do have all of this listener interaction. And don't forget the special discount code, of course. Head to high5.co.uk, use that code Paula in capitals 25 to get an extra 25% discount on lots of goodies. That has been about it for this shakeout, hasn't it?
Is the 25 in capitals?
I had to look down then and check on my notes.
Made you look.
Look down and check. I maybe need an energy gel just to keep me going through all of that. This has been a Momentum broadcast production. Thank you very much for listening to the Shakeout. Remember, the main pod drops on Monday, and we will catch you next week for the Shakeout on Thursday.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, even.